All right, so the Avs win the last game heading into the All-Star break, and they do it in pretty dominant fashion. 5-1 win. I thought Logan O'Connor was on his way to another hat trick, as it looked that way to start the game, and my boy's been having a hell of a year. Logan O'Connor with 13 goals by the break. It's his most ever in his career by far. His second highest was 9 that he did last season. But I think the bigger thing is two things, actually. Number one, these last couple of games before the break, we all had some concerns about goaltending and defense, and they locked it down pretty good the last couple. Only 3 goals allowed in the last 2 games, as opposed to the Forgiev nickname that was bestowed on Georgiev just a couple of weeks ago. So nice to see the goaltending and defense get better. But also, they make this signing, and it's a big name. You sign Zach Parise, you're like, all right, where does he fit in this? My question with him is this. He's almost 40. I don't know what he's going to bring to you. He's signed off the street. What's funny, Rob, is that on Friday, I said, Moshe, I'm seeing a whole bunch of names kind of rumored around the Avs. And I pointed to his, and Moshe went, like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, okay, I guess he's just a depth piece that you can throw in there in case you need to and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, the way that this team plays is you're fast, get up and down the ice as quick as anybody. I don't know where a 40-year-old kind of fits into that mix. I'm not against it. I'm just generally unmoved, I suppose.
I think it's important what you're paying him, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So,
right. You're just taking a flyer.
Right, yeah. And it kind of, he had such a big impact that I hesitate to say this, but it kind of reminds me of the Cogliano move.
Cogs can still play.
Yes, he can.
Yeah.
But so could Parise. I mean, he had what? It was like 34 points last year or something like that.
Yep.
So he's not garbage, right? And I think what you get there.
So he had 34 last year, 35 points. He played
35.
all 82 of the last couple.
I think what you get there is a veteran guy who has been the leading scorer on the team, has played on a New York Islanders system that's all about defensive responsibility and locking people down. And you say, no matter where I put him in the lineup, I know I'm going to get a solid game out of him. Whether I have to put him on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen, or I have to put him on the Roaring 20s line, I know he's going to be able to bring an NHL caliber game and play it there. And like last year when you lost Nichushkin, I felt like you were kind of scrambling to figure out who you were going to put in that spot.
Yeah.
And so you now have this piece that you could slide up and down the 3 lines. Normally what you do is you take your third line and you break somebody off of there and go put it on whatever top 2 line spot you need to fill.
And they aren't doing that for the 20s.
You're not doing that with this line.
Yeah.
They're too good. They're too good together. And so now you're either taking a 4th line guy and putting it on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd line.
That's a good point.
Or you take this 40-year-old vet who scored 35 points last year. I think he had 100 points one year in his career. I mean, he's
way back he had 94.
94, okay.
But that was in 2008.
And it's not like you're going to get a 100-point effort out of it.
Right.
But it reminds me of the DeAndre Jordan. I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once.
Yeah, little Toby Keith.
Yeah, right.
No, I think it's a good point. I certainly think what he's brought in to do is the same thing. Like when you said Cogliano, I think what hit me there was veteran leadership. Yeah. Somebody who's been there, done that before, that sort of thing. Now, this team has plenty of playoff experience, so it's not like they were lacking in that category, but still having maybe another steady, more calming sort of presence there helps. I would almost compare it more to Jack Johnson than Cogliano. Like veteran guy who, look, his best years are probably behind him, but can he give you something night in, night out? And you aren't going to play him all that much, but can he give you something? Maybe I'll take that, especially if you get some injuries down the line. I think your point remains of, hey, you can have him fill in where he needs to.
How long did Lehkonen miss? Ended up being like, what, a month?
I think it was closer to a couple, right?
2?
I mean, when was the last time? I'll take a look.
It was a while.
Yeah.
I was going to say 6 weeks to start with, so we're right in between there.
Yep.
if you had Zach Parise to put in that spot for him, don't you feel better about that?
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what if Jonathan Drouin dries up? He's played pretty well. I've liked him. He clearly
I hope he doesn't, because he's playing good.
I know. But he has at times in the NHL turned into a shell of himself.
Sure.
So just to protect against that, you bring in another guy who you can just put on that line, and it's not a Lawson that you got to put up there. You know what I mean?
By the way, Lehkonen, his last game was November 9th. He got back on the 24th. So, yeah, it was a full couple months. Yeah, almost three.
Almost three. So, I mean, if that happens to you in the playoffs where you're down Lehkonen or Nichushkin doesn't come back in time, or even Rantanen has to take a week before the playoffs and you still have the division on the line, don't you just feel better putting Zach Parise in there?
Yeah. And I say this all the time. I'm not a coach. I've asked coaches this before, but I think this is, like, if I were a coach, this is what I want them more than anything. It's one thing when you have guys like McKinnon or Jokic or, like, all-world talents. But if you find guys that, I think the key here in what they're looking for from players is consistency. It's just, do I know what I'm getting every night? No matter how good or bad you are, if I know what I'm getting, then I can kind of slot you in and build a game plan around that. It's one of the reasons why I love Logan O'Connor. Logan is not one of the most talented players in the world. He's talented, but he's just a guy. You put him on the ice, I know exactly what I'm getting from him every single night. If you can have another one of those, like, I'm down for it. I guess my expectations just aren't super high. But what you're talking about, I totally buy that. You have an injury, you got a veteran guy that can fill in, that you know what he's going to bring every night. Sure.
And he knows what to expect. He's not going to be overwhelmed in any of those situations.
Nope.
Whatever you ask him to do. You ask him to play defense, he'll be fine. You ask him to play a defensive game is what I should say, he'll be fine. Mm-hmm. You ask him to try to fly around and score with McKinnon, like, he can probably do that. He's got the vision. Now, does he have the speed to keep up with anybody on this team? Maybe not. You know, I'm sure he's lost a step. I haven't done a deep dive into Zach Parise. So if you're worried about his skating ability, I totally understand that.
It's one of them that I have. But
I mean, maybe. But if he's got the vision to distribute to guys like McKinnon and Rantanen, then it doesn't really matter, does it? You know what I mean?